several of the Metro Atlanta middle and high schools, and we provide prevention programming for students. We also provide informational sessions for staff and parents. And we also, our focus is on Project Connect, which is a nicotine cessation 8-week curriculum-based program. And we've been doing this now for 10 years, and we've had great success. We've seen a lot of reduction in use and even a lot of quitting of nicotine. So we're working hard to make a difference. We know that nicotine can be a segue to other things. And yeah, we're the boots on the ground for Caron in the Atlanta schools. So
absolutely. So we are so excited to be able to present this information to you so that you have a better idea of how to identify, well, we'll get into the objectives, but just really how to identify and talk about and just raising some awareness of what we're looking at. So we can go on to the next slide. That's us. So a little bit about Caron. Caron's been around for 60 years or over 60 years. So it was created in Wernersville, Pennsylvania. So that is like our hub. It's a residential facility up there. We also have a residential facility in Florida. It's Renaissance and Ocean Drive. And again, those are residential facilities. And then Caron Atlanta is the first intensive outpatient in the region. So we're really excited to be able to offer this. The education department has a 30-year history of just presenting to families, to organizations, to individuals. So much is about education, and I love that about Caron. So it's whatever kind of information we can get out, however we can get out, that is, you know, one of our goals, one of our purposes. We have a full spectrum of treatment programs to meet the needs of everyone. So even in Caron Atlanta, we have, you're good, we have the ability to do a full evaluation for the ACM levels of care and, you know, be able to really place them where they need to be. So we're almost like a triage to get them either in services with us or service wherever they need to be. We have that ability, and I just absolutely love that. We are a nonprofit as well. So that's another aspect that I love, the philanthropy behind it and just giving back to the community, offering scholarships. And I mean, that's a huge passion for everybody in Caron. So that's a little bit about us. And this is what I was saying about some of the objectives, right? Some of the things that we want to make sure to hit are, what are they doing? What are teens doing nowadays? What are the current trends and the impact? Oh, something I forgot to mention. If you have any questions, just hold them to the end, maybe jot them down, maybe throw them in the comments area, but we want to make sure we're going to leave some time. There's a lot of information here, so we want to make sure to get through this and leave some time for questions. So we'll be looking at some of the comments and just opening up for Q&A towards the end. So anyways, back to the objectives. What are they doing? Current trends and the impact that it's having in, you know, in our society, with teens, with families. Why are they doing it, right? What is that driving force that's happening that's creating that urge or that push towards using? And there's also some very interesting information about, you know, the percentage that aren't using, and that's really cool. I can't wait for you guys to hear that from Tara. So why are they doing it? And then looking at how can we help? What is the policy around it? What's the education, prevention, and the cessation resources? So we're so excited to be able to present all of this to you. And we have so, like I said, we have so much information, and that's why we're going to be just really thorough and on point. Hopefully I can stay on point. Tara, help me. So really looking at the construction of the brain, of the teen brain, as we are growing up, right, we're wired to take risks. I mean, you can see this as far as back in like toddler years when they're learning to walk and they're learning, you know, what's safe for them and what's going to hurt them and things like that, but constantly taking risks to see where their limits are and where their boundaries are. So risk taking is normal, and it's healthy, actually. It's a very healthy way to really understand and assert like independence and know what their limits are, know what their boundaries are, and just test them. So learning about themselves, discovery of boundaries, I hit all of that. So we are wired to do that. So just being able to really fully embrace that and understand it, as frustrating as it might be sometimes, because it's like, I told you this was going to happen, but they really have to experience it themselves. So just really looking at, it's a good thing that they're taking risks. It's how do we focus them into the risks that are going to be as hurtful, right? How do we channel that? So also looking at just they're wired for emotion over logic. And as they're developing, as their brain is developing, like everything is activated. And here's the thing, it's like, we have that survival mode, if we're looking at like the limbic system and everything, like the wiring isn't fully getting to that prefrontal cortex, right? Where it's like all the reasoning and all the rational thinking. So again, that's why they're making maybe not so great choices and what they're risking, because it's not like how we have, as far as just like, oh, it might, I really don't want to go to work today, like that would be great. And then we think about, and then it fires off something and this whole system is working. And it's like, well, maybe I shouldn't, I really have this task to do and I have this meeting and maybe there's another day that I could take off or something like that that's planned. Well, that message doesn't really get to their prefrontal cortex, that frontal lobe. So that's why they're like, yeah, let's not go to school. That sounds good. So being able to recognize that this is very much just based on emotion. Emotion sends us, it's a communicator. It sends us signals, and their brain isn't wired yet to really filter out some of that. So they will act on emotion. And then reward over risk. Again, teens are often motivated by the potential of rewards of risk taking rather than fearing the consequences. So again, it's like that development of the brain where it's not fully developed to be able to think it all the way through. Like, what are some of the long-term consequences? It's just that immediate gratification, immediate feeling of good or excited or whatever, and they act on it because, again, all of this is wired together. The wire to take risks, emotion over logic, and then reward over risk. So that's sort of the functioning that's going on in their brain. Pretty insane, right? Everything that's happening. So if we're really looking at the reward pathway, we have the active, right? The activity is of food, roller coasters, drugs, like excitement. Dopamine is released when this is activated, right? Sex is in there too. So there's pleasure. When the dopamine is released, there's pleasure happening. They feel this warm, fuzzy sensation and excitement. And then that's wired into their memory. So they remember that, oh, when I do this is how it feels. And this is the positive reinforcement. And then there's this motivation to just repeat, right? Because again, who doesn't want to feel good? Who doesn't want to feel excited? Of course we want to. So again, it's whatever is implemented, whatever activates that's going to create this neural pathway and that motivation to repeat. And if they do repeat, then that just solidifies that wiring process. So I really love this slide, and I love it because it really gives you an indicator of where like the baseline is, obviously, right? The baseline. And then what activators actually create this increase in dopamine. And as you can see, it's like the food, the videos, like the gaming, sex, cocaine, and then we move into the drugs. And look at the methamphetamine, right? We are actually seeing this in more teens where there's an increase in stimulant use, not just methamphetamine, a lot of other stimulants too. But you see that, of course, they're going to have that rush of dopamine. And again, you're a kid, your brain isn't fully developed. All you know is that you feel phenomenal. And that's that reward that you're just going to want to repeat over and over and over. Oh, sorry. Just went right into that one. Did we miss? We missed the nuggets again.
Let me go back.
So
is not up. Okay.
There it is. There it is. So this is a little clip that's going to show you sort of that risk and the reward and the curiosity and just like over and over and over. I really love this clip. I'm going to put myself on mute. So. Okay, I can't just sit here and be quiet. So that was obviously just looking with curiosity, this bright, beautiful golden glow of just like, hi, I wonder what that is. A little bit more curiosity. Oh yeah, there's the feel good. There's the dopamine release. Feeling great. And that first time, right, that come down, they softly land. It's not that harsh, right? So it's not this huge consequence. It's just the good feeling. A little bit of a rougher fall, but not so bad, right? Like, it was just a little bump. The excitement of that next rush, running towards it. A little bit of a rougher fall this time. Like, that really did hurt. Shake it off and keep going. That's the extreme of the power of the reward. And as you can see, it's just like this progression of now the consequences are getting worse and worse, but it's that wiring, right, of knowing what will make me feel good, and now it's really created that reward pathway until there's a point where everything is dark and they don't know which way to go or how to get out. Before they know it, they're like, what in the world just happened? So I really like that clip because again, it shows that progression and to the point where, you know, when we talk about going over that tipping point of like when you're just using to abuse to addiction, and not, you know, that wiring is now solidified, and trying to figure out, like, I'm not sure what to do now, right? So a lot of times this is where we get them. A lot of times this is where you all get them. You know, they're reaching out for help finally because they don't know what else to do. So thanks, Tara. So here we go into like the risk versus protective factors, right? So if we're looking at the protective factors, there's the delayed, right? Delayed or no use. So the longer, I mean, like the more that we're looking at it and the more we're studying it, the longer the delay of use, the better the outcome, right? No, and another protective factor is being able to know that like your parents disapprove of it. They're not okay. They're not going to go out and buy you alcohol. They're not going to go out and buy you vaping material and stuff like that. Another protective factor is that your friends don't use. You have a group of friends that really, you know, can have fun without it. Trauma-free, if that's possible nowadays. Healthy role models. So even if it's like just like one, I ask people sometimes, it's just like, what about just one moment, just that one person that saw you for who you were, and just loved you unconditionally and told you how awesome you were. You know what I mean? It's like, who were those people in your life? And let's build on that. Strong school connection, understanding the harm. So that's that early prevention or intervention and education, and then little or no access. So and then, of course, we look at the risk factors. So within this, it's use at an early age, perception of parental approval. If your family uses, you know, if everybody's okay with it. If you have friends that use, then if there's childhood trauma, and trauma can be a whole slew of different things, right? It's not just like the big T trauma, it's the small T trauma and everything in between. So healthy, unhealthy role models, poor school connection. If you don't really feel connected and integrated in your school, low perception of harm, right? Like, oh, marijuana is not that bad for you. Like, you know, it's legal in so many states. And then if there's that open access to it. So addiction is a disease. Primary, it is not secondary symptom of something else, right? If we look at primary substance use and addiction. So of course, you know, we see a lot of co-occurring disorders. If they're an active addiction, active using, that's the first thing that you have to remove in order to identify what else is going on. It's progressive. It gets worse over time. The addict becomes physically, spiritually, and emotionally and psychologically ill. So you'll see that progression just like you saw in the Nuggets clip. Chronic, there is no cure. Recovery from a disease must be based on abstinence. So again, there is a solution. You have to live in the solution every single day and really nourish and nurture yourself in your recovery every single day. Fatal, this disease can only be arrested. If it is not arrested, the addict will die. I mean, you talk about jails, institution, and death. That's what they say, right? That's where addiction leads. So this is a disease. All right, so looking at, the reality of mind-altering substances is the fact that they work, right? They can be tools. They're like, it gives people energy. You saw that dopamine release. So again, it's looking at this works for me, that this gets me up, it gets me moving, and like that, oh wow, of just like, wow, this is how I can feel all the time. Like, who wouldn't want to feel this way? And then also looking at how it soothes, you know, because it can be a mechanism, and it works for self-soothing. If you're feeling really distraught, overwhelmed, you know, anxiety ridden or highly depressed or any of that, drugs work. Drugs and alcohol, substances work. The problem is they work until they stop working. They work until they start hurting you. So that is, I'm going to hand it over to Tara to really tap into the current trends.
All right, so we are going to dive deep into current trends, but I must start with some good news, right? That's a great way to start, right? Okay, so the good news and what a lot of people fail to understand is that most youth are not using. I think it's such a big deal when they are using, and that overshadows the fact that most of the youth are not using. Examples, 58% of 8th through 12th graders have never tried alcohol. 69% have never tried marijuana, 85% have never tried a cigarette, and 99% have never tried heroin. And these are statistics that come from Monitoring the Future. It's a very great research organization that focuses on drug trends and drug use among youth. All right, so we're first going to start out with talking about the vaping epidemic. This is something that has become more and more and more popular as the months and even years go on at this point. But just to provide you with an overview, e-cigarette is the official term for it, and there's a diagram of the e-cigarette at the bottom. Not all of them look like this anymore, but this is the basic of e-cigarettes. And basically they're just a handheld device that produces an aerosol from a solution that typically contains nicotine flavoring chemicals, or THC, that's inhaled through the mouthpiece. And some common terms used when talking about e-cigarettes can be electronic cigars, electronic nicotine delivery system, ENDS, hookah sticks, e-hookah, and most commonly what I hear is just vapes. That's like the most common, easy term that I hear amongst the kids that I work with. So we're going to talk a little bit about their introduction. This is was a sneaky introduction. They were marketed in the U.S. in the early 2000s, and they became due to an option other than smoking, right? Because you're getting the smoke, you're getting the nicotine, so it was officially marketed as a healthier option to be able to get your nicotine, because you have to remember the nicotine is what's causing that addiction and that drive to smoke tobacco, the chemical nicotine. So what happened was this was marketed as a healthier way to enjoy getting your nicotine. And oh gosh, no, it's nowhere near as bad as smoking cigarettes. It's much healthier, it's much safer. Well, that has since been proven to be very wrong. So just to give you a little bit of teen nicotine trends in Georgia, 2.69% of Georgia high school seniors reported first smoking a cigarette at 8 years old or younger. And I know that may come as a startling fact, but it is very true. We get to hear the stories in person when we're doing these groups with these wonderful kids. And it's true. And I'm sure that you can assume or take a gander at how they are getting these cigarettes at the age of 8 or younger. Leanne, care to chime in for $1 million?
Parents?
Ding, 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 ding. Leanne, you're a millionaire. Yes, they are sneaking their parents' cigarettes, their older brothers or sisters, the neighbors, grandmothers. What people have to understand is, as Leanne explained earlier, access is so vital. I mean, what kids have access to, and then again, what Leanne talked about was that curiosity, so kids see mom and dad enjoying a cigarette. They come home from work, they're tired, they're stressed, they want to kick back, and the first thing they might do is smoke that cigarette or drink that beer. And kids are connecting, to de-stress or relax, or it makes mommy and daddy feel good. They're making that connection. They're very smart, Another statistic, 7.16% of Georgia high school seniors reported smoking electronic vape product at least once in the past month. And this was actually taken at the end of the 2018-2019 school year. So yes, it's taking place. Okay, so see, high school seniors, all high school students, there is a percentage, like I said, but good news. I'm the good news girl today, Leanne. The good news is that means that 93% of Georgia 12th graders have not vaped in the last month. And something that, and I think Leanne would absolutely agree, something that is often missing from drug and alcohol prevention education is discussing how the majority of teens are not engaging. You know, in my groups that I do with my kids, we ask them on day one, what do you think the percentages are of kids that vape, you know, kids that use cigarettes, kids that smoke marijuana, and they are grossly overestimating. I mean, pretty much, I never get lower than about 40%. And as you can see on here, for high school seniors, it's 7%. So we have to, if we're underestimating the frequency of healthy behaviors, that false perception can become contagious, and we don't want unhealthy normative behavior. You know, we want to let people know that yes, it's bad and we have to work with the percentage that are using, but we have to also recognize the fact that most are not. It's very important to do. All right, so the evolution of vaping devices, first generation. These came out around 2007, and as you can see, it is the shape of a cigarette. One even looks just like a cigarette. So again, that goes back to their purpose and intentions of trying to market this as a healthy alternative to cigarettes, but still you're getting that exact same feeling. Then we had the second generation where they were still pen-like, but they were refillable. The first ones weren't refillable, okay? They were disposable. Then we introduced the powerful ones, okay? These were the mods and tank systems. These are the devices that you see people blowing literally tons and tons of smoke coming out. It's they're very powerful, they're very strong, and that's what the vaping users wanted and fell in love with, quite honestly. And then we have our most recent, which right now we're in the fourth generation. They're sleek, they are hard to detect. If you're looking at the picture, the one on the far left is the Juul. And that is the pod, the little square thing in the front next to the red device. That is the pod that goes into the Juul. And that is by far the most common among youth that we've seen. And just in thinking about the most recent products, they really took things to a whole new level. The Juul absolutely became the most popular device. They're battery powered, utilize a coil and an atomizer that heats up and turns the e-liquid into an aerosol that is then inhaled. Now these pods do come pre-filled and they're very convenient. When you finish one, you literally pop it out with your thumb and you just pop on another one. Now, you have to remember one of these pods is equivalent to a pack of cigarettes. So you can imagine kids are going through these pods in a day, easy. Okay, so also Juul came out with 8 very fun flavors. 2 that I hear are the favorites among youth is the creme brulee. I mean, who doesn't that sound good to, you know? You got creme brulee and you have mango. Those 2 things are some things that I wish were on my menu for lunch today, you know? So, I mean, people are attracted to these flavors. But I will update you on some laws that have just been passed where those are null and void. So it gained popularity with the kids, and the adults were none the wiser because, again, this looks like a flash drive. If you look at the Juul, it looks just like a flash drive. And they found that kids were charging them in their laptops at school. There was even a story I read where the kid was charging his Juul on the teacher's laptop, and she was completely unaware. So they're getting these vaping companies are getting very, very sneaky. So this is a very interesting slide, and Leanne and I definitely wanted to share this with you. They've gotten so smart as to how to be able to provide these kids with an option to hide in plain sight. If you look at your far left, you have a nice young lady with a hooded sweatshirt on. Well, the drawstring to that hood is a vape. I would never suspect that in a million years. Then you have a key fob. That is what my key looks like to my car. And I just wouldn't think anything of it. Then you have watches that are similar to the Apple Watch and the Fitbit watch. And that is a vape tank. You just kind of pop it out, and then you actually hit that little tank. Then we have the hydro vape backpack, which has many different ways to vape, so kids can kind of even vape together. And then the inhaler. I mean, how ironic is that? Who would ever think that that would be something that would be of concern? So yeah, there's lots of items that are marketed that really make it easy to vape without anybody knowing. And then on top of that, we have very creative individuals that like to do their own. You know, vaping is a culture in itself. There's vaping magazines, there's vaping websites, there's even socks. I mean, you know, if socks are made about something, it's got to be, you know, of relevance. You know, I mean, look at the socks, and it's unfortunate to see this, but as you can see, it says, if you can read this, bring me my vape. So everybody's kind of cashing in on this very, very popular culture that's taking place now. I mean, we even have a gaming system controller. Then they can decorate, have custom skins on their vaping devices. And then even at the bottom middle, there are e-juice recipes on YouTube, and kids are making concoctions at home and smoking it because, you know, remember, we have those refillable cartridge vape devices. And, you know, when you add heat to chemicals, it changes form. You don't know, you know, what could be the outcome of that, but there's a potential for it not being a good outcome. So let's talk a little bit about what is actually being vaped. So propylene glycol and vegetable glycerin, these are used to simulate smoke. They don't serve as any other purpose, but they're giving the vape user that feeling of, I'm smoking something. And I've talked to kids that specifically say, I vape because I like to do smoke tricks, and I like to see all that cloud of smoke just in my face, come out of my mouth and in my face. And then of course there's nicotine, and there is different flavors, which we'll talk about that in a minute. There's leaf marijuana, then psychoactive substances, which the most common one of that is, you know, the THC oil marijuana concentrates. It's very popular now. And they're easy to modify and fill with homemade substance or marijuana concoctions. So that's also an option. I can tell you, so the program that we do in the schools with students, the one I was telling you initially during my introduction, is called Project Connect. And so it's an 8-week curriculum-based program. And on day one, we give all of our participants a pre-assessment. So we're asking them kind of about their habits and their knowledge. I can tell you, hands down, there's a question that says, you know, do you vape and how often? And if so, what are you vaping? The options are nicotine, just flavor, marijuana, or don't know. Don't know is 65% going to be the answer. Because, you know, we calculate all of our pre-assessments. 65% is approximately the percentage of kids not knowing what they're even putting in the vape. And then once they do their research, they come back and it's mostly nicotine, and they're not even realizing that they're already, gee, I wonder why I want to vape so much. Well, it's because you're vaping a very addictive substance called nicotine. So interesting facts there. All right, so what can we look out for signs of vaping? Again, it's, you know, they're making it to where it's so hard to notice, but we try to come up with a couple of signs that could maybe potentially help. So the unexplained sweet scent. Teens are into flavors. You know, that's the cool thing. They have Jolly Rancher and blueberry cheesecake and so many different flavors. It's unbelievable at these vape shops. So, so there's usually a strong scent, a sweet scent associated, especially if they're using those sweet flavors. Pens or flash drives that aren't pens or flash drives, they literally look exactly like a flash drive. They really do. Especially like the Juul, but they're not. So maybe, you know, giving some devices a second look to see what they really are could be helpful if, you know, you have concerns of of vaping taking place for your children or your students or, kids that you work with. Dry mouth. The two ingredients, the propylene glycol and the, vegetable glycerin absorbs water. That's their purpose. So when they're smoking this chemical, it makes the mouth so dry. It deprives the mouth of any moisture. So a lot of what kids call cotton mouth takes place when vaping is happening. Also nosebleeds, because lots of kids are into the smoking, the vaping tricks with the smoke. What happens is when of course the vape is inhaled through the mouth, but it's commonly exhaled through the nose. That's where a lot of the tricks come in. It is drying the nose out horribly, and it's causing thinning of the skin. It's causing irritation of the skin, and your skin is very sensitive in your nose, and one little scratch, you're gonna get a nosebleed. So a couple of things for you to look out for. All right, so what do we know? The vapor is not water, okay? It's aerosol. The users breathe in heavy metals, volatile organic compounds, carcinogens, which are cancer-causing agents, and ultrafine particles. Nicotine levels can be very high. I cannot stress this enough. When you go into a vape store, you decide how much nicotine is in your liquid. It's not just the baseline, okay? So you can get the e-liquid that has up to, I think, maybe 38% nicotine, and that's an alarming rate. That's, and a lot of kids don't understand the impact that nicotine has. So they're like, yeah, give me the strong stuff. But the fact that there's even that option is what's very scary. Again, overheating these chemicals increases toxins, and with the increase of toxins comes the increase of risk. And as of 6/18/2020, there has been, according to the CDC, there's been over 2,800 hospitalizations or deaths confirmed. And partly that's due to EVALI and EVALI. Clinical and health departments refer to this illness, so it's broken down as e-cigarette or vaping product use associated lung injury. And we'll talk about that a little more on the next slide. And then vitamin E acetate. I know you think, oh, vitamin E is so good. It has so many great healing effects. Well, there's 8 different ways that vitamin E is used, but it is not supposed to be inhaled. It becomes very toxic. Now, if you have a dry elbow, right there's fine. You have a little dry skin, hands, great. I strongly recommend it. I use it all the time, but it is not supposed to be inhaled because that's when it becomes toxic. So, we got to make sure we're using vitamin E correctly. So some of the dangers of vaping, and we kind of talked about this. I'm not going to read all of them. I'll just go through some of the ones that my students have expressed that they feel. That's definitely nausea and dizziness. There's also a concern about the secondhand and thirdhand aerosol. We don't know ultimately the effects. We're just now learning about the effects of the actual user vaping, with the EVALI. So, just imagine what's going to come down the pipeline with second and third hand effects of that vape smoke. They have been known to explode. There was, I think it was a couple of years ago, there was story after story after story on the news about vaping devices exploding. And again, as Leanne said, the impact on the developing brain, we know that brain is not fully developed into the early to mid 20s. So those chemicals are having an effect. And then, so again, and EVALI is, I'll give you the acronym again. It's the e-cigarette or vaping product use associated lung injury. This was given its own new specific name in response to the growing number of illnesses related to vaping. So when it's been officially given a name, you kind of get scared, and this getting an EVALI diagnosis can be anything from, you know, problems with the lungs, severe shortness of breath to where some, you know, breathing assistance machines are needed. There's such a variety of symptoms that come under this. But again, the medical professionals feel that they are directly related to vape use. So, all right, 2 great things have happened in our favor to try to get a better handle on this. And I'm sure you're all familiar in the last, I think it was maybe like 3-4 months ago, something like that, the tobacco age went from 18 to 21. So that right there was huge. That's helping keep it out of the hands of the younger kids, okay? It reduces access. It keeps it out of schools. You know, there are kids that are up to, you know, usually 18 years old is around, give or take, the time when we see kids graduating. So that's keeping it out of schools. And then it delays the onset of daily use. The younger you start using, the more likely you are to be using for a long time, okay, to where it's out of control, to where addiction does take place. Ban on flavored pods. So here we go. No more mango and no more creme brulee. They ban now there's a trick to this because it only applies to pods. So those big tank vapes, you can still go to the vape shops and literally pick from 300-400 different flavors. But what they did do was they did stop the flavored pods outside of menthol or tobacco. So so as far as the Juul, the ones that are more popular, you can only get those in regular tobacco flavors. So
Karen, just keeping an eye on time. We have about 15 minutes.
Okay, I'm gonna breeze through. I just have a couple more slides. All right, moving right along. Okay, marijuana trends. All right, let's get into the thick of this. Active ingredient that actually makes a person high, gives some person that high feeling, is THC, which is tetrahydrocannabinol. It's a tongue twister. And marijuana is a triple threat. It's a stimulant, it's a depressant, and it's a hallucinogen. It can serve all of those purposes. So the 3 main ways that it is consumed is orally, smoked, and then inhaled as an oil or a wax. Okay, so here we go. THC levels in the 60s and 70s. So we're talking about Woodstock time here, right? And we've all seen pictures, videos, and movies. And I know that that might have not been the only thing that everybody was on, but they looked like they were having a really, really, really good time, and they were really out there. And the average THC level during that time was no more than 1%, right? So then came the 80s and the 90s. The THC level increased to about 3 or 4%. And then here we are today. The average THC level is 16%. But I will say this, there is a term used for, I guess, what would be considered good marijuana that the kids use. It's called loud, right? So the reason why it's called loud, or it's referred to as loud, is because it's very potent and strong. So, and I would say the average for that is around 23 to 25%. I mean, I'm talking about the smell, the strength, and kids are smoking this all day long. So, and then alarmingly enough, THC oils or waxes can even increase to the level between 40 and 99%. And I'm talking about, this is knocking kids out. And edible, you know what? With edible, you get what you get. It's a surprise. You don't know until you're in it, and then oftentimes it doesn't work good. Leading right into edibles, here's some examples. I'll point some out. The most common usually is the baked goods or candies. Look, we have the Pop-Tarts, we have pizza, and what happens is marijuana is infused into usually butter, and then that butter is used to make the baked good products. They even have hot sauce. It's mind-blowing, as you know, they always say, no, we're not marketing to kids, you know, but I mean, look at look at the things, chronic lollipops, Pop Tarts, sodas. It's just even jam, they even have jam on there, and hot cocoa, it's taking all the innocence out of all the things, childhood staples in our lives. Georgia marijuana use. 5.03% of Georgia 11th graders reported starting smoking marijuana at 15 years old. And again, 9 times out of 10, it was through an older sibling or a parent still, unfortunately. All right, so just wrapping up with marijuana, I just wanted to talk about that the vaping of marijuana has doubled. The past month use nearly doubled in a single year among 12th graders. It's easy to hide, easy to use in schools. Now, again, this is vaping marijuana. The key issue that hurts the most on trying to find out who is doing this is that it is completely smokeless. There's no odor. And that, marijuana is so pungent, it's always a dead giveaway. Kids smell like it, it's in their hair, on their backpack, it's just that odor. Well, with vaping THC, there's no odor. And I've had several students I've worked with that have tried it one time thinking it was innocent and have ended up in the emergency room so paranoid high, they couldn't even, ambulances had to be called to school because they were so paranoid.
Yeah, I did want to add on to that really quick, is that we have seen an increase in psychosis because of the levels of THC, where it's just like Tara was saying, it's like the paranoia, you just see all sorts of, it's really sad and scary.
Yeah, and the marijuana pens look exactly like the regular vape with nicotine or just flavoring pens, and you can't smell it, so you don't know. It's a problem. It's a problem. And then really quickly, the wax dab, this is what goes up to almost 99% THC level. And it's a paste made, it's extracted from the marijuana leaf, and it's a paste made, and it is so strong. This will take somebody out potentially, as far as just a high that's nothing like they've ever experienced before. Because the THC level is so concentrated. And then here's some marijuana withdrawal symptoms. And it is the usual, it kind of goes across the board: irritability, anxiety, sleep disturbance, and of course, depression, like we saw our sweet little nugget on the video. And then quickly, alcohol trends. We got the boozy beers, again, a culture around drinking. We have beer pong. Drinking games induce binge drinking, because with games, it's always a race. It's who can drink the most the quickest, and that's the definition of binge drinking. So all these games that are playing are inducing binge drinking. And then we have a bracelet flask. Again, they're making it so easy for kids to hide. That, I think that holds a whole beer. And she's got it on her wrist like it's just a cool little bracelet. But again, I'm going to end on a very good note that alcohol use continues its decline. So as you can see, from 2009 to 2019, all grade levels are decline in drinking and binge drinking, which is very good to see. And then just finally closing out with alcohol, the last 30 days of the 2018-19 school year, only 1.8% of Georgia seniors reported drinking and driving. I know that's so horrible, but again, it's 1.8%. We have to recognize the fact that 98% are not doing this, and just hope we can really reach out to this 1.8% and make a difference. And now I'm going to pass it back to Leanne.
All right. So this is something that we've been seeing more and more in the program with teens, is over-the-counter and prescription trends, right? These prescriptions that they're getting either from, and again, it's think about what you have in your medicine cabinet, and just know that that's a possibility for them to try. Opioids, any kind of pain medication. If you talk to kids, they're telling you, yeah, like that was the first place that I got, either from a parent or, you know, a friend's house or something like that, the Oxycontin. There's also, Adderall is a big one, and I don't think it gets enough press because, I mean, people think that it's normal. I know the amount of kids that I've had come in, and when you ask them like where you got it, like one of their parents might struggle with ADHD, and they might give them, and then they see their kids struggling, and they know that they have a big test coming up, so they give them an Adderall, or they might take it from their parent and start using it that way. This is a big one because they think that, you know, I need to concentrate, and that can flow right into just the stresses of, you know, college and school and everything like that. But also cough syrup is another one to look at, DXM. They sometimes mix it with, you know, Sprite or something. And then even with the codeine, a big one is like codeine and mixing it with Sprite. So it tastes really good and they get the effects. So we are seeing a rise in this. I can't tell you the amount of kids that I've had. Xanax too. I was just saying, like, I have one kid that came in for an evaluation, and he went through withdrawals from Xanax when he was in 7th grade. So again, this is out there. It's important to look at and talk about, and talk to the parents about, or, you know, teachers talk to the parents, and parents just to be aware of what's in your cabinet, and really keeping an eye on that. Oh, what happened? So being able to look at other drug trends, oh yeah, all sorts of goodness. I was actually talking to another director of a program about her realization that there is a huge rise in LSD. We are seeing it more and more and more. And here's the kicker, guys. The kids know that it cannot be detected on a drug screen. And if you want to, it's usually, well, here's the thing, is that it's usually not within the panel because it's so intense to be able to test for LSD. There's like a whole procedure. It's really expensive. So that we're seeing a big comeback with that. Molly, and different like synthetics, you know, ecstasy. And here's the danger in some of those, is that they're pressed differently. So you never really know what you're getting. You know, a lot of times there's heroin, fentanyl in it. And we have actually seen an increase in the use of heroin in teens. So the K2 and the spice is something that's been around. It's been around for a while. Those are the synthetics. And again, being able to try to test them, there are now specific tests in drug screens that you can, but they keep on changing the makeup of them so that people can get around the drug test and it's undetected. And these are things that you can find in vape shops, in drug stores, I mean, just anywhere. So that's something to be aware of. At the front counter, that there's all those beautiful little pills at the front counter of some of these gas stations. That's where these things are. And then of course, cocaine, stimulants, that goes right along with the increase in like the Adderall and the ADHD medications, but kids are, you know, cocaine's making a comeback too. So, but I want to tell you that the big one that we're seeing is LSD. It's making a huge comeback. So, and then looking at like, what can you do? What can we do as professionals? What can we do as parents, as healthcare workers? Right? I love this. An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. Benjamin Franklin. So looking at it's everything that Tara goes into in the SAP program, the Student Assistant Program, is providing that early intervention and prevention, right? Looking at how are everybody's attitudes around the use of drugs, educating the parents, educating the kids, educating the teachers in the schools, and being able to pull from that strong sense of the majority of people are not using, right? Because I hear it all the time within our teen program. They're like, well, everybody's using, it's everywhere. Actually, no, it's not, right? It's not. It might be within your friend group, because again, if you look at the risk factors, they're surrounded with people that use and it's normalized. In actuality, it's not the norm. So, and again, just looking at, you know, what are the risk factors, and really looking at getting into that prevention, because as Tara said, as I've said, the longer you can prolong that first use, the better the outcome. So what can you do? again, this just looks at speaking to teens about all drug types. They also find it really hilarious and giggle every time you know the slang words. So brush up on your slang terms. They sort of roll their eyes and they're like, oh, you think you're so cool. It's like, yes, I know. Yes, I know what loud means and what a plug is, right? Don't go to your drug dealer. So being able to really speak to the teens in their language about all drug types, alert the parents if you're concerned. This is a big one, right? And a lot of times what we will do is just like if something happens or if they're at a high risk, we'll say, okay, we can talk about this with your parents together, or I can tell them like but regardless, they need to know. So how do you want to do this? Empathize with the stress they have. There, like I was saying, there's a lot of school stressors. Like we get it, like the immense amount of, I have a 12, well, she just turned 13 and she's like, Mom, I don't know where I'm going to college and I don't know what I want to be. I was like, neither do I. I don't know what I want to be when I grow up. Like, what are you talking about? And she just laughed. But there is this immense amount of stress. Like, I don't remember having that when I was 12 or 13. I was still hanging out and having fun and like, you know, playing out in the woods. I was a tomboy. So that shifted quite a bit. So just empathizing with them and then identifying the positive outlets, recognizing and reinforcing the positive outlets that they have, that they're doing, you know, any kind of music or anything like sports, anything that they're doing that you can identify. And then also like really supporting that however you can. And then supporting the social norms theory is what we keep on saying is that the majority of people aren't using actually. So let's get with the times. And why don't you be one of the, I hate to say it like this, but if you think about the peer pressure, it's like, why don't you be one of the cool kids and not do it? Yeah. Being able, oh, sorry, go ahead. I'm good. So being able to look at the tips for early intervention too, do not ignore the signs. There's so much that can happen for early prevention. If you just really look at like, okay, we're seeing this and don't live in denial, right? Don't get caught up in that confusion. Speak in observable behaviors. This is what I see. You have glassy eyes, you're coming in later. You have a shift in your attitude. I see that you're sleeping later, like get really specific and just express your care and concern. My favorite word is curious. I'm just curious as to what's happening. I don't know what's happening, so I'm curious and I'm hoping that you can help me understand. Follow your organization's policy regarding confidentiality and how and whether to involve parents. I say, and I like to say how to involve parents, right? Not whether. It's how do I do this? This is my concern. Help me in understanding what our policies are so I can grab their parents or helping professionals. So there are a lot of different treatment approaches, individual therapy, group therapy, didactic approaches, family sessions, motivational interviewing. Of course, there are so many different ways you can engage in therapeutic processes in order to treat whatever is happening, their substance use. And just know that they're out there. And we love to be a resource for like, again, we have regional resource directors that know of all the different resources in the area. We have our SAP team that knows all the different resources for teens and like the school systems and stuff. So tap into those, tap into us and let us help you navigate, because it's a big world out there. It's a big world in the recovery and addiction world. Aftercare recovery implications. Oh my goodness, we're over. I'm so sorry. So looking at like relapse prevention, parent support groups, aftercare is so important. So the beginning part is just like that foundation, the treatment process of it, the early intervention process of it. That's the foundation. And then the aftercare is what's really going to solidify. That's all the support that you need and being able to continue. The longer somebody is in a structured like support group environment, the better the outcome. That is over and over and over been found in research. Handing it to Tara.
Okay. So really quick, just kind of piggybacking off of what Leanne said, we even have digital learning programs that are free of charge. We have them designed for teens, parents, caregivers, and professionals. You can go at your own pace. You can do it in your pajamas on your bed. It's no cost to you or your organization, and we welcome you. We ask you, please to participate in these, because there's a wealth of information, and knowledge is power. I'm a firm believer in that. And so I want to give you the website. It's at the bottom. I'll say it out loud just in case. But if you go to caron.org/digital-learning, it's gonna be a great experience. I personally guarantee it. So an example of one of the examples for the adults, well, really for anybody, is the vaping and marijuana trends among youth, and that's kind of what we with our current trends section here, that's what we kind of focused on. It is a great backup. It's tons of more information, so I welcome you to please go on the website and check that out. And then finally, we do have our curriculum-based nicotine cessation program that is also available through an app or on the website. And again, if you go to the caron.org/digital-learning, everything is right there at your fingertips. So please take advantage of this. We did this for everyone. So hopefully you'll be able to do that. And then finally, these are some of the resources that we use. If anybody wants to take any notes of those, or please feel free to reach out to one of us, and we'll be more than happy to connect you with the resources you need for whatever your situation is. And then finally, Leanne, you want to close it out for us?
Yes. So we just want to thank you so much for taking your lunch hour to be with us, to learn more about the trends of teens and adolescents. So we have a lot of different ways to follow us on social media. They're all right there. And like Tara said, we have so many resources. We just want everybody to have. So if you have any questions, you can reach out to me. I'm in the Atlanta office. And yeah, I think that's it. I'm just so excited that everybody took their time to be here with us. And it is recorded. So again, if you missed some of it, we have that. And it's open to, and I know that we're over, and I want to be aware of that, but if you have any questions, just put it up in the chat. We'll sort of just hang out a little bit. Oh, you're welcome, Lynn. Lynn said thank you so much.
Okay, wonderful.
Jessica said thank you. You're welcome. I'm just typing back.